Hey, Dr. Brett here. I've got Jamal behind the camera. And we were supposed to film with my assistant Ashley today, but she's not feeling well. So we're just going to do some question and answer stuff. Jamal, you have a question for me?
This is always tough, on-the-spot questions.
That's the best way. That's what I like to do, on the spot. I ask all the kids that I coach, what are you curious about? And like half of them got nothing, and their homework is to get more curious.
You ever do a mobile home, like an RV road trip?
That's a good question. Since Jamal here behind the camera is building out his van into like a souped-up mobile home, and is going to travel the country here and edit from the road and do his own thing and blog and do all this stuff. I've done a lot of road trips, many. I've driven cross country like 6, 7, 8 times. I don't know, something crazy. My wife and I have done 3 cross country trips just in the first 3 years of our marriage. First 2 years of our marriage. Since COVID, we've only drove back to Connecticut in the past year and a half. But prior to that, the country is so big and so vast, it's really interesting. Like I always talk about Colorado and New Mexico and Wyoming and just Utah. These states out west are big, vast, gorgeous, stunning. The canyons are amazing. The time of year. My wife and I were in Boulder like 3 years ago when we drove cross country, and we stopped at this place at the mall. The mall is like this sort of area of restaurants that is like no cars and everything. It's sort of brick area. And we stopped at this place, Pasta J's, and it was right before Christmas, and it was lit up at night. And so it was such a cool, so I lived in Boulder once. So I lived in Denver once, I lived in Boulder, I lived in Santa Fe. These are just amazing places. Yeah. Not enough water for my ass here. I love water, but it was fun. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite place in the U.S. or a favorite experience rather? Like right now, we want to go to a little north to see the leaves change color.
Yeah, Connecticut in the fall, where I'm from, is gorgeous, but North Carolina will be gorgeous in the fall too. My favorite. I've never been happier living close to the ocean like this. This South Florida experience where you don't have to worry about winter. For me, winter's a little bit of Game of Thrones-ish. It's like the White Walkers are coming. I just, it's not my thing. My wife's going to go back for Christmas. My wife's going to go back with her friends, and I'm going to be like, have fun. I'll pay for it, but I'm good. I'm going back next week here to Connecticut in the fall. I'm looking forward to it. I love it. Fishing, golfing, whatever, and hanging with clients and friends and family. But that's it, and then we'll go back again in spring. So my favorite, on this planet, right now, I'm loving the South Florida thing. I've been in California many times in my life. It's a gorgeous place to live, but the taxes and the politics are a little screwy, whatever, it's too much. So in the earthquakes and the fires and whatever, I'll take a random hurricane.
It's like the apocalypse over there.
Yeah, it's just too much. It's just way too much.
I'm sure people say that about Florida too, though.
Florida's pretty balanced and mixed. I really found it incredibly balanced. And laid back and chill, especially in the summer. People complain about how hot it is, but if you live anywhere close to the ocean, it's laid back and chill. It's like we're in the Bahamas.
Oh yeah. Florida's really nice. I think I've lived in a lot of places in the world, and I think it's definitely up there,
Definitely.
Weather, people are hit and miss. But you can
people are hit and miss pretty much everywhere, right?
Anywhere. You find great people anywhere, and there's crappy people
It gets more intense in the winter around here, Palm Beach County, right? Because of when the New York, New Jersey crowd comes down, there's more intensity, right? So you have to be careful crossing a street, right? You got to look both ways, a little bit. That rush thing is weird, because one of my things in life is, what's the rush? When you're trying to get past somebody in traffic, you go nowhere. It makes no sense. It's like, okay, you cut in front of one car, but you're at the traffic light or stop sign anyway. So you've saved 8 seconds, and you almost created an accident, right? and you piss people off. When people do that, one of the things I talk about with road rage is like when people do that thing where they're just acting psycho on the road, I'm like, I'm chill. I let them go by. I don't put up my finger. I don't know what they're carrying. I'm just like, okay, dude, whatever you gotta do. Like, you're in a rush. Maybe your mom died. I don't know. I try to give people the benefit of doubt, right? It's like, you never know. That's also a good habit, by the way. Like, your first thought is benefit of doubt before you have instead of judgmental, right? Like, it's a good way to think, right? I think it's a little healthier when you do it that way. You never know, right? When someone like blows off a text, doesn't respond or whatever, there's always the one possibility in 100 a relative died. 99 times out of 100, they're blowing it off, avoiding or not dealing. And so I will address that pretty much every time, but there's that benefit of doubt. So when you're texting them, you say, is everything okay? And then, haven't heard back, right? It's a good habit in communication, by the way.
Usually when people have outbursts, I don't really attribute it to myself, it's not really something I did, it's something they're feeling it.
Well, they're high strung on edge or stressed, or it's been building up.
Yeah.
Right. The Eckhart Tolle concept of a pain body, it's like the stored emotional trauma is just building and then they blow, And every once in a while I'll notice that I'm just driving, too much the speed limit or something because I'm like, not in a rush, right? So some people can't handle that, right? So what else, Jamal? Patience, right? That's really what we're talking about, right? Learning how to be more patient, more in the moment, and a little bit more poised, right? It's a great way to live, right? Not rushing.
Enjoying where you are.
Enjoying where you are. And if you're not enjoying where you are, get on the exercise bike. Do something to change your state, right? I do a lot of Wim Hof now. I get everybody to do the breathing exercises because it's an amazing way to change your state. We had a birthday over the weekend, and I, definitely, had fun with it, right? And so I was pretty tired. I got up the next day and I did like 45 minutes of Wim Hof, and it made, it helped me survive it, so to speak, right? Really cool shit. You do breath work of some sort, right?
All kinds.
All kinds, yeah.
I guess it would come from yoga, pranayama.
Pranayama.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I don't do anything fancy. I don't do. It's hard to even breathe that way. I've been smashed in the nose so many times.
Alternate nostril.
Yeah, I'm just doing basic Wim Hof. And then you hold, after you do 30 of it, you do the hold for a minute and a half or whatever, then you release it and you hold again, and then you go back to your next rounds. But if you do enough breath work, you can get high as a kite without any substances, which is nice, right? You don't need to alter your state other than do it naturally. It's more fun, right? Because you don't feel shitty the next day or the next moment, whatever it is. So
where is the world going? Like healthcare, regulation, governments.
Yeah, these are complicated topics, but one of the reasons that that I've told everybody I find Florida pretty amazing is because no state taxes, such a pleasure. My whole life I've paid a lot of state taxes in my lifetime, and that's a pleasure to take a break from that. A little less regulation. There still is a strong environmental consciousness. I do a lot of fishing. You have to be mindful that way, and that's a good thing. There are lots of rules around housing construction, right, and building hurricane-proof shelters and stuff. Remember that building collapsed in Miami? So now that'll create an upgrade. I'm sure the engineers are having a field day now. But it's just a pleasure when, I feel like there's enough control on this planet and there's enough control freaks. It's a pleasure when you're living when there's less of that. That's absolutely, fundamentally decent. And then, in this local community we're in, there's a sheriff's department. They're lovely. There's a lot of sentiment now, anti-police stuff and whatever, which is actually nice when you have relationships with police officers and they feel part of the community, it's kind of nice. Like it makes you feel, what's that?
I said, I mean, they are part of the community.
Yeah, well, they can be,
And
right?
I like to think most cops, well, not most, but a good cop would want to help people. That's the intention.
100%, yeah. And so I think that there's a lot of harm done in, some of this, anti-police rhetoric and stuff and, anger and rage. And I understand the sort of, like the deeper elements here that there have been times when, people have taken advantage and people do abuse power, and certainly some cops abuse power. I've experienced that, we've all experienced that, I think. But I do think it's a small percentage and it can cause a lot of harm. But I think the vast majority are well-intentioned, and I think if we treat people with respect and dignity, they treat us with respect and dignity in general. So I'm a big fan of, making people feel wanted and desired and appreciated. And then I think that actually goes a long way. I was talking to somebody today about this topic because, if you defund police, what you do is you demotivate them. And if you demotivate them, I think it's myopic. I think it's short-sighted. What happens down the road when you need them? Because at some point you will. And now you've demotivated them. If I take somebody and I'm paying them $20 an hour and decide to just pay them $10 an hour, what's going to happen? They're going to get demotivated. If they don't quit, then, they're less likely to be there for me, right? You don't want to demotivate people. In general, you want to appreciate people, right? So I think this is a tough topic for a lot of people because it, creates a lot of ire. There's been trauma and tragedy in the past. But I think the vast majority of law enforcement is well-intentioned, the vast majority. Now, if you put yourself in their shoes, their job's not that easy, right? Because randomly, there's, let's say it's 1 out of 100. 1 out of 100 people that they pull over is completely dangerous and might shoot their goddamn asses. And so they're dealing with that all the time, that random, uncertainty. And most people aren't putting themselves in other people's shoes, and that's something I live and teach. We want to always put ourselves in someone else's shoes. What would it be like to be them? Let's imagine what it would be like. What happens if someone randomly fucking shoots you, right? Well, that's going to create a trauma response with them, right? And if they didn't experience it personally, one of their friends did, right? So we want to have a greater understanding of other, right? Not just self. And then when we can communicate that and we understand other, whoever the other are, whether it's a black person, a police officer, an Indian person, a Jew, whatever, it doesn't matter. We want to try to understand other. I'm always talking about other, not just self, right? To have compassion and to have understanding and to be curious and engaging and ask about other and take a genuine interest in other and really try to understand their world. To really understand someone else's world, you've got to listen. And listen for real. Put yourself in their shoes. What would it be like? Especially like in a high crime environment. Officers that are working in high crime environments, they're always like putting their life in danger in some way, right? So what would that be like? Well, as a psychologist, I know, right? I've worked with thousands and thousands of people. I've worked with military. I've worked with police officers. I've worked with people that have been raped and molested and abused, and family members that have been killed and so on, right? All kinds of trauma. And when you put yourself in other people's shoes, you understand that this is complicated and not easy, and the vast majority of people are trying to do the right thing. Now, some people are serial killers, and some people are sociopaths, and some people are bullies. Those people are different. But being able to discern the difference, is important, and not lumping people into one category, right? Like police or whatever, right? That's not cool, it's not smart, and it's incredibly myopic. Hey, Dr. Brett here. Hit like and subscribe, and if you really want to support us, sign up to our Patreon.